My post today is entitled Floods Upon Dry Ground, Chapter 10, Promise of Recovery. Last time we discussed Pastors Bobby Duncan's and James Jones's book, Floods Upon Dry Ground, Chapter 9, titled Prescription for a Cure. The authors detailed that pain in a person usually causes a person to go to a doctor to seek a cure. And that's exactly what's needed in today's sinful world to again bring about floods upon dry ground. People need to fervently seek and encourage others to fervently seek the great physician, God, to find the only cure for their sin, Jesus. Duncan and Jones in Chapter 10, Promise of Recovery, wrote about the hope and the spirit-lifting effect we have when we exit a doctor's office with a medication, prescription, and directions to help heal our pain. In the same way, they wrote, when the people of God are reminded that He, God, answers their sincere and fervent prayers, they are immediately encouraged. They wrote that when Christ stops becoming the centerpiece of our Christian religion, and when we substitute man's philosophy for biblical truth, the church is in trouble. And we need to ask ourselves the following two questions. Here they are. How can the church in America recover from its formalism, which means superficial worship and lifeless religious observances only? And number two, how can the church in America recuperate from its inclusiveness? And I encounter this sometimes, hearing people say that there's many ways to get to God, and they forget that Jesus said of himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. We need to consider the following two things before true spiritual healing can occur. Again, we go to Floods Upon Dry Ground, Chapter 10, and we ask the questions. Number one, restoration is God's work. When disaster befalls us, when creature comforts are gone, our only hope is in Him. We don't have the power to recover our spiritual health any more than we can heal a terminal illness. Number two, this is a little bit long. Truly walking in the Spirit is a lifestyle that has long since slipped away from America's Christian movement and consequently from the nation itself. And true spiritual revival, call it what you will, renewal, restoration, recovery, or awakening, can only come through the sovereign move of the Holy Spirit. That is God's part. We have no power to save ourselves or to restore spiritual life once it has ebbed away. Our part is to turn to God with all of our hearts. So what is our part for God to enact His promise of recovery and bring about floods upon dry ground? According to Duncan and Jones, Chronicles 7:14 has the answer. And here is the only answer to bring about floods upon dry ground. If my people, who are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. Then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and heal their land.